Okie dokie, we're back again, and we've got the main parts laid out that we need to reassemble the carburetor and the seat, the float. So we'll start with putting back the main jet. So I'm going to drop the main jet in. Okay, that just sits in there, and we have the seat. And just remember, the seat's got a. The seat's got a slot. The jet's got a main slot that we need to screw in. You want a screwdriver that fits nicely and snug into that slot. Okay. The reason being, if you bugger up that slot, you're going to be looking for a repair of that, or potentially replacing the carburetor, or buying new parts for carburetors is and typically not worth the trouble. It gets expensive. You might be able to get some on eBay, but best not to damage anything here. Only replace what you have to. You just drop that jet in, main jet. Okay, little slot, you can see it in there. Okay, it's gone down inside, and then okay, and it's hard to describe how much pressure I put on that, but if I had to describe it, once it hit the bottom of the thread, I just gave it another little quarter turn to snug it in. Okay, yeah. You really don't want to over tighten those either. Okay, so we've got the seat in, we've got the main jet. The next thing to go is we've got the float. Okay, the float assembly. The float assembly has a little spring-loaded component that fits in there, and you have an open end for your pin. Okay, so it's just a hinge. Just want to make sure that you've lined that up, and it basically just slides through there. Okay, and it sits there, and if your float's not damaged, of course, it'll lift up. It'll lift up when the fuel fills up in the bowl. That'll lift up and cut off the fuel. Okay, so that's in place. Now, the main objective with all of this, and the main problem, is what I have here. And I know it's hard to see, but this is the original O-ring, and if you can see it, it's all deformed. You can see there, and it's never been off. This O-ring has never been off. I've had this mower from new. The bowl's never been removed, and that O-ring's all deformed. You can see it twisted out of shape, like someone's had trouble putting it back, cleaned it sometime, put it back. So, you know, in the 15 years I've had this mower, that's never been removed. And you can see the condition of it, and that's just because I believe that the deterioration of the fuel onto that O-ring has deteriorated over time. And when I'd actually pulled it out, it was quite substantially larger, and had blown out on one side, and subsequently fuel was leaking out of there. That's the old one. This is a new one. You see it's a different story. It's in good nick. There's the old one as a comparison. If you can make out that detail, you can see it's all deformed on the old O-ring. What I like to do, and it's not necessary I guess, but I like to use a bit of petroleum jelly on my O-rings. and I like just wiping them down. I'll put a bit too much on there, but you get the idea. I like to wipe them down with a bit of petroleum jelly. This way, you don't want to put as much as I put on. Okay, you want it just enough to lubricate the O-ring. I'm in the belief that that'll help maintain that O-ring and help seal. And like I said, it's not it's not something that you maybe want, maybe it's not your thing and you just want to drop it in there, and I think it'll work just fine. Okay, so I've just pressing that O-ring. It's a bit hard to make out. Hard to make out, but you want to stretch that O-ring okay. It's going to be a bit of a bugger. You want to get that seated in there. I'll just turn it around, see if it's any better for me. Sometimes these things go in one way, and you see it's a bit of a snug fit, this one. It's not the it looked like it was identical size, but to be honest, it was a bit out. But the better to be a fraction tighter than a fraction loose. A fraction tight you can't, a fraction loose you can't do anything with. And this one is a generic part. Okay, I think we've got it seated in there quite neatly now. And so we want to drop this bowl onto it. Make sure your pin is correct. Make sure your float's working before you button this up. Your seat's in. The only thing we really got to do now is put that on. I was quite fortunate to find an O-ring for this carburetor just down the mower shop, and a couple of times I was told it wasn't possible because of the Honda bowls, and they sell a seal combination with the bowl and the seat, the O-ring, and it was all going to work out too expensive. So you know, it was sort of a wasted exercise. Just you know, it gets to the point where you just want to replace the whole carburetor. You're going to start spending money on it, to be quite honest. And I was lucky enough to get that O-ring for $4 down the local mower shop, and like I said, it was a generic part. Okay, so we've been able to maintain our gasket here. If you're not lucky enough to have maintained that gasket, you can make a new one, you can get some gasket material and try and cut it exactly the same size. I'm not going to do that. I think this one's fine. Condition is, other than that edge there's a bit of buckling, but that's not going to affect this point here. There's no buckling in here that I can see, so I think it'll be fine. And I think we're just about right to, next part will be, we'll reassemble. We'll get this back on the engine. Okay.